Hi everyone, welcome to All Things Iceland, the place to get the inside scoop on Icelandic nature, history, culture, and language. My name is Jules, and today is so special because I had the absolute honor of interviewing Claudia Ashanie Wilson. Claudia is an Iceland-based human rights lawyer that moved to Iceland from her homeland of Jamaica in 2001. So way back in the day, before many people were even thinking anything about Iceland. So it's super fascinating to kind of hear her story around coming to Iceland then. And of course, the many aspects of being in the country as a foreigner, as a woman of color, going to school here, because she didn't practice law before coming to Iceland. So she went through the school system, learning the language, going to law school in Iceland while using Icelandic. So I mean, for anybody out there, I've never had to practice law, but I have had friends who've gone through that process and who've talked about how difficult law school is. Think about adding the language of Icelandic on top of that. So my hat's off to her on so many levels and being such an amazing human being that really goes to show us that a lot is possible in our lives with a lot of perseverance. And of course, she's highly intelligent. That helps a ton. She's just a great role model, and I feel that this interview was one that gives so much insight into the many kind of faceted layers of life here in Iceland for foreigners, for people who come here, especially from drastically different places, such as Jamaica. I mean, yeah, Iceland and Jamaica are both islands, but come on, I don't feel like you can get much different than those two places. What's super cool is that Claudia is also the first person outside of Europe to have gone through law school here and passed the bar. So that she kind of talks about that experience too, and just the whole idea that she's a pioneer in so many different ways. I think it's amazing as well, in the summer of 2020, she made partner at the law firm that she's been working at since 2013. So lots of awesome things that we get to touch on in this interview. As you can tell, I'm super excited. I get excited about a lot of things, but this one was just like an elevated excitement for me, because really showcasing an individual, like I mentioned, who is trailblazing and a person who's just taking excellence to the next level. If you want to read more about her biography, just in terms of her accomplishments, that information is in the description box of this video, which is just below. And just to kind of give you a little bit more of the layered effect that's going on here in terms of life, she is a person that juggles quite a lot. So including being a lecturer at the university, working full-time, of course, as a partner at a law firm. She's involved with governmental and non-governmental organizations regarding initiatives that have to do with human rights. And she's a mother, a wife, and socializes with people somehow. I don't know how she fits all of that in, honestly. So it's just so awesome. I hope you enjoy this interview. If you are enjoying interviews like this, definitely make sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe so you don't miss out on more awesome interviews like this coming up, because I do have so many amazing people here in Iceland that I've had the honor to interview, and I'm just so happy that I get a chance to share them with you. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Go the Skemmtun! Claudia, thank you so much. I'm so honored and excited to do this interview, so thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Oh, thanks for the invitation.
There is so much for us to talk about in terms of how much you've been a pioneer and a trailblazer here in Iceland. But of course, everybody has their roots in terms of where they've come from. And it's always really interesting to kind of find out when a person is a foreigner that lives in Iceland, where they're originally from and how they ended up in the country. So if you don't mind sharing a bit of that story.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting story, but I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
So I'm from Jamaica. I was born and raised in Montego Bay, Jamaica, which is like the tourist capital of Jamaica.
Yeah.
But in the countryside, so we call that Upper St. James. And I met my my ex-husband via a mutual friend. Basically, we became pen pals, and we did that for a while. And then, long story short, here I am.
Okay. And did you move to Iceland like permanently before ever visiting Iceland?
Yes, that's correct.
Ooh,
Yeah,
girl,
so,
you are brave. Okay.
I know. So I was even talking about that recently. Like the younger me was probably extremely brave. Looking back, I don't think I would have been brave enough to do that. So I guess my adventurous side was the younger me.
And excitement. Yeah, exactly. It's like all these emotions mixed together.
Yeah. It's part of that thinking that you're invincible when you're younger. I mean, today I try to tell my kids they're not, but I guess I was there, probably with similar mindset back then.
Well, Iceland is lucky that you came.
Oh,
and
thank you.
and I'm just wondering though, when you got here, I mean, you're coming from Jamaica, where it's warm all the time, different culture. I mean, granted, they're both islands, but very, very different islands. So, could you talk about any culture shock that you had? Like, what was it like? What time of year did you come as well?
Yeah, so even that, again, just take into consideration that I was a very young girl and thought I knew everything and really didn't know much. I came to Iceland in December. I know, right? Straight from Jamaica to Iceland. And that was quite the experience because I don't think that anything could prepare me for walking into a refrigerator, like a freezer, and to understand that that was about to become my new normal. and yeah, so obviously I'd never seen snow, and I know it may seem a little bit ridiculous to probably someone listening, where I would say that you see those romantic movies with with people kissing in the snow, and it looks so beautiful, but seeing that on TV versus being in the snow is obviously not the same thing, and I guess my thought process didn't go that far.
Yeah.
So I was very excited to experience being in the snow. And I recently did an interview where I spoke about this part of my first experience of snow. The sun was shining outside, and I'd waited, obviously, because the day when I came, there was no snow. So I had waited a little bit for the snow to come, and the sun was shining outside, and the snow was out there, and I was like, yes, snow and sun. So I put on my shorts and I opened the door. And I just kindly close it again.
Like, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, I guess when the chills got to my legs, I'm like, oh boy, wait a minute. No one told me that the sun in Iceland is just a decorative piece in the sky. Has nothing to do with warming up the place. So it was quite interesting. And so just living through this new experience of having snow and
and the darkness, that part too.
So dark. That was also something to get used to, for sure. But funny enough, I felt, which is a weird thing to say, and like I feel better being in the cold rather than I did when I was living in Jamaica in the heat. I can handle being in the cold much better. When I go to Jamaica now, it's sometimes extremely difficult for me to be in the sun all the time. Yeah, it sounds weird, and I'm not even making this up. It is hard for me being in too much heat for too long. I'm miserable. But being in the cold, I'm fine with that.
That's awesome. It's great that it's like that for you, because there's so many people who have the opposite problem.
True.
Or, I mean, granted, Jamaica can be very hot, but still, there are people who are like, I'd rather that. So that's
absolutely.
Yeah. And food-wise, and like the mannerisms of people, because I've heard
Mm-hmm.
often from many people that like in warmer places you have people who like hug each other more, they're more like outwardly emotional or expressing themselves, and then in colder climates you have this kind of more standoffish, you know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
so were you
yeah.
experiencing that? Was that like any challenge for you?
Yeah, so moving to this, like moving to Iceland, new culture, new people, and all of that. It was a little different. Just how people were in general. You people will smile for sure, but you didn't get the sense that you would be, you easily taken into, certain circles or easy to connect. And what I've found out throughout the years, like it's something that I've always kind of given much thought. What I've come to realize is that a lot of Icelandic people are extremely shy. Yeah, they're very shy, and so it might come off as being cold and distant, but when you're actually when you get to know them, or the people, because I can't generalize it.
Yeah.
I find that people who maybe have lived abroad are more open and more outspoken and so, because they've experienced being elsewhere. But you have many people who haven't had that experience, and so they're more reserved in that sense.
Yeah. Comes off as kind of rude, even if it's just like,
yes, exactly. Yeah. So I've had those kind of experiences, and one of the things that I think also has an impact is some people are not extremely comfortable with having to speak another language. And so, there's this fear that if I engage in conversation, then I might have to speak speak in English and don't get me wrong, of course, Icelandic people, many of them speak very, very good English, or speak English well, but I've seen that where some people, or people even have expressed that they are afraid to have to speak English for extended period of time. So, and maybe one final thought on that is, sometimes, because it's such a small country, and then the the immigration population is like rapidly increasing, like it's growing real fast. And so this change, for many Icelandic people, they've formed their friendship since kindergarten.
Right.
And so you'll find that they are engaging with the same people from from being a toddler up to getting married and divorce or whatever happens in life. And so it's sometimes hard to penetrate that circle where you're coming maybe as an adult to Iceland and trying to make friends with people who have already locked their circle. But I think over time that might change for sure, as obviously the demographics is changing as well.
Yeah. And what year did you come to Iceland?
Yeah, so I came to Iceland in December 2001, and at that time the population was around maybe 3.1% immigrant population.
Yeah.
And now it's
really
almost
small.
16%. So just to put into context, how fast it's growing, and then how the native people have to adapt to that rapid change.
Yeah, exactly. And were you seeing other people of color or Black people, where you were living or interacting with? Yeah.
So in my case, I made many people make fun of me for this, both Icelanders and immigrants alike. I moved straight from Montego, Jamaica, to a small town outside of Reykjavík, maybe around 40 minutes drive, called Selfoss. And I lived in Selfoss for 10 years.
For 10 years?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I lived in Selfoss for 10 years. So for a while, I was the black woman in the town. So it's just
It sounds like a little Britain skit, by the way.
And I had the experience of people coming up to me in the grocery store, can I touch your hair?
Oh,
can
wow.
I touch your skin? And I've even had the experience of people going to a party, and this was something to get used to as well, like house parties. In Jamaica, it's the sound system in the middle of the street, and the party is there. But going to a house party, and then there's hardly any music, which in Jamaica the focus is on the music, and people would be drinking and having fun, and I'm trying to understand what's happening here.
Right.
And I would find that, or one particular experience I always remember, and that was in my early days of being here, was I was at a party, a house party, and all the men, they were in one room and all the women in another room.
Really?
No, like separate. Basically, when I say in another room, so in another section of the house.
Okay.
So there, people are having fun and they're talking, but men are having their conversation and the women are having their conversation and dancing and talking and so on. And I sat with the men because I didn't speak the language, and I felt comfortable with my ex-husband. Obviously, I didn't know the people at the party.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is, as the night went on and people were drinking and having a good time, the women gravitated towards me. and so they became more open, and we talked, and but I don't mean in the sense that people were drunk, or it wasn't like that. It's just that they became more comfortable with I don't know what that is, but I find that, sometimes, which kind of maybe goes into my theory, that people are sometimes extremely shy. And of course, having a little bit of alcohol, then you open up. And these were very lovely women because their husbands were there as well.
Exactly.
So I was the black woman in the town, and going to the grocery store. I've had children, run away crying about the brown woman.
Wow.
Because it was so new. And again, if we put it into context of, 3% foreigners in the country, and most of those were from Poland and Lithuania. And so, being from a faraway country such as Jamaica, and then visibly a minority, then that's a different experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then in terms of trying to assimilate, right? Because part of the thing you were talking about in regards to the party was not being able to feel comfortable communicating, learning Icelandic, and you're fluent in Icelandic. And this is one of those like uphill battles. I mean, I've talked to many people. I'm having my own, journey, I call it, just to make it sound better, because sometimes it feels like I'm battling. But how did you go about learning the language? What kind of techniques did you use? Did you go to school for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've heard you speak Icelandic, and you're doing well, my dear.
Thank you.
So don't be too modest. But yeah, so Icelandic is a difficult language. I won't lie. And I say to people that you continue to learn.
Yeah.
I'm still learning all the time, something new. I think they say that, you're fully Icelandic when you start to dream in Icelandic, which I am doing. So
that's awesome.
I dream in Icelandic and remember vividly, like in my dream, I was probably cursing at somebody or speaking in Icelandic. So I've arrived. But so I went to one course for Icelandic for foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
Just shortly after I arrived here. And then I didn't want to do anymore, which is, you probably can go up to 6 levels of Icelandic in that. What I wanted to do was to go to school to learn in Icelandic. And I know that was super ambitious of me. But I did that. And then, in my early days as well, what I did was I had this I was eager to learn Icelandic, and I think it came from my curiousness. I'm very curious. I want to know what people are saying around me. And so what I did was I bought two, what do you call it? Like books,
Dictionary? A notebook or
notebooks. Well,
yeah.
See, I'm thinking about it in
I was
Icelandic.
gonna say you're probably thinking in Icelandic. That's happened to me. I'm like, oh
yes,
my gosh,
yes.
who
Well,
am
there
I?
you go. You've arrived. But yeah, so I bought myself two notebooks, a very tiny one and a really big one.
Okay.
And what I did was make my own dictionary. And how I went about that was I literally marked the book from A to Z with the Icelandic alphabet. And I would, at first it sounds, I'm sure you had the same experience. At first, when you hear people speaking, it really just sounds like gibberish. But then I said, once I start hearing words seep through all that gibberish, it doesn't matter how it's spelled. I'm just going to write it how I hear it sounds to me. And then I will ask someone whether they recognize this word. And also, what the meaning is and the correct spelling.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I filled that notebook, the big notebook, with it for with how the words sounded to me, and that has helped me actually with pronunciation in Icelandic.
Nice.
And then how they're correctly spelled, and just what the meaning of the word. And that was a great dictionary. I lent it to someone, and I don't know what happened to it. But regarding the tiny book,
yeah,
I usually kept that on my person. So wherever I went, I would have that on me. And in cases where I've forgotten it, I forgot to bring it with, I would try my best to write it down in the palm of my hand, what the word is that I heard.
Right.
And would try to transfer that to my big dictionary. I've had some instances where there was one particular time when I wrote down a word in my hand because I heard it repeated so many times in a conversation that my ex-husband was having with his friends, and I thought to myself, Lord Jesus, how disrespectful. He's here, I heard the word again and again and again. So I wrote it down, and my face got meaner as he kept saying the word, because at least I know that word in English.
Yeah.
And, and so the word, and I was very upset. And on the drive home, he asked me if I was okay, if I liked his friends. I said, I liked your friends, yes. And, he said, is there something wrong? And I said, I just find it very disrespectful that you would be discussing or sex life with your friend. And he said, how? What are you talking about? And I said, here it is in my palm. I heard it. You said sex and sex to sex and sex and sex to sex. You see where that's going, right?
Yeah.
And he started to laugh. And I'm like, so that's funny to you? that's funny to you? And he said, no, dear, I was actually saying 6 and 66. The Icelandic word for 6 is sex. And I could just crawl into a hole. So embarrassed. But those are the trials and errors, I would say. And there are many more stories like that, but we won't get into that.
I can definitely see how that would, if you don't know, it would trip you up. You'd be like, right. Or like even caca, that's still, I laugh at that one to this day. Because I'm just like, we say this to little kids about poop, and it means kick in Icelandic, right? This is just so odd.
Yeah. There are many more instances, but that's one of the most memorable ones, because I was very, very upset. But yeah, so that's how I did it, trying to learn Icelandic. And in addition to that, I decided to enroll in the community college in Selfoss, where I was, and I did business and economics, and studied that in Icelandic. And where I needed to make up for my lack thereof, I would be allowed to use English. And, I tried my best not to use English as little as I possibly could.
That's intense. So you had, so everything was in Icelandic, like the text, and the teaching.
Yeah, except when I did English classes.
Yeah, okay.
I was
Wow.
definitely in English, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you know what? In a small town like that, I found that people were extremely helpful.
Okay.
The librarian, I wonder someday, I hope someday I will see her again, and I hope she's all right. But I remember she used to get these tapes from the Society for the Blind, and I could listen to that. It helped with listening and a lot of things that she did, and I thought that was amazing. And I found that just the entire, staff there, like, they were extremely helpful. I remember that, so I'm always grateful for that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because there's a discussion about that happening. There's an article I read recently about how the library doesn't allow just anybody to use audiobooks because they are assigned for people who are blind, and they don't plan on changing that rule, even though people of foreign origin here have been saying it would be such a great help to have access to audiobooks and not have to buy them. Just like take it out from the library. I don't know if they're ever going to change that, but I think that is something definitely worth.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should write an article about that, because
I think so.
Honestly, it really helped me. I remember that I used to sit in this room downstairs in the library where I was left alone to listen to my tapes, and I would write the words and try to pronounce them myself, and that was so helpful. And it's like when I went into the library, they knew why I was coming, and it's just like, good day in, and then I go down the stairs and go to
I'll send you the article that I'm talking about that talks about this.
Please do,
that helps. And okay, because we're going to get into, your influence here in Iceland is quite vast, but law. So you're a lawyer, and you've made history in Iceland just becoming a lawyer, which is pretty fascinating. But I'm wondering what made you inspired to study law in the first place.
Yeah, so that's also an interesting one. So it's something that I've decided, I think, around age 14 that I was going to do. And it's not much that went into that decision, rather than the fact that I was a huge fan of The Practice and Eleanor. You remember that show? Yes. And the second reason was a teacher of mine who said to me, just in passing, I remember that I was on my way into the schoolyard, and he was on his way out, and he's was hustling, and just he stopped me and he said, I think I had done some debate in the morning, or I don't remember what it was about, and he said, Miss Wilson, you should become a lawyer, because you'd be very good at it because you talk so much. That was it. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should. And it just stayed. Just stayed. Obviously, at that age, I didn't know what kind of lawyer I was going to become, or what really being a lawyer was all about. Just what I saw in The Practice. It must be that. It must be that exciting. And so I made the decision there. And prior to that, I was convinced I was going to be a teacher, mainly because my grandfather, who worked as a slave when he was younger, and he never really had any formal education, or no form of education. So I would read all his letters for him, even from the age of 7, and write his letters for him and things like that. And he always said that, whenever he wanted me to do anything like that, I would always know, because he would refer to me as teacher, or if I'm outside playing, then he would call teacher, and then I would run in. And I felt so important reading Papa's letters and writing Papa's, you see, I'm saying brave, Icelandic, Papa's letters for him. So I was convinced that I was going to be a teacher until the age of 14.
And then it's just like, all right, now a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And that one stuck, at least.
And now I'm stuck. So
what you do,
so
you are a teacher, though. You do also teach in the university.
I lecture at the university. Well, University of Iceland, University of Reykjavík, and the United Nations Gender Equality School. Yeah.
Awesome. So why have to choose when you can have both?
Exactly. I didn't even think of that. Well, that's true. I'm sure Papa would be proud, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and going through law school in Iceland, how tough was that? I mean, law school for everybody, you know, that
Yeah.
heard who's gone through have been like, I'm so happy to be done. You know, it's quite grueling. How was it here? Was it also like one of those like huge challenges to you? And of course, dealing with legal Icelandic now on top of that.
Yeah. So, you know, I thought that going through the community college, and I remember doing a course in, I think it was commercial law or something like that. Just, you know, basic stuff. But in my mind, I was doing something great, and I was going to excel in law school because I'm excelling at this commercial law. I'm killing it. Now imagine my first day entering into law school and going to my first lecture, and the teacher opened his mouth, and I'm like, what is this man saying?
Oh no.
So for me, it was like I've learned regular Icelandic, and now I'm also realizing that there is another language, like another version of Icelandic that I needed to learn, and it pretty much sounded like a brand new language to me.
Wow.
So I did the same thing again, which was try to, you know, increase my vocabulary in a similar manner as I did before, but simultaneously, obviously, studying Icelandic. And I remember before I started school, before the semester started, I had asked the school in advance if they could give me the book list. So I could buy the books, and then I would be caught up when the school starts. Right. So I had already kind of, you know, seen what the language looked like.
That's good.
But also hearing it is another thing.
Yeah.
So I had kind of started, you know, creating this dictionary. You should see my books from my first semester. They're covered with English texts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, as time progresses, and I got, you know, more and more into it. But what I always found is that understanding it, you know, was something that I still can't explain that to you, but I somehow understood it all.
Yeah.
Even if I couldn't say it, you know, repeat it all back, I was able to from the beginning.
Yeah.
And again, don't ask me how, but I just know I know.
The brain is an amazing
Which is
organ.
what I've always said to people, that for me, it was easier studying law than learning Icelandic.
Right, yeah. Okay, interesting. Well, so if you get your Icelandic down, you're basically saying you can do anything. Is that like...
Precisely. Or you can do anything, either way.
That is true. I meant more like it when it has to do with that. When I thought Icelandic things.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But one of the things that I also appreciate was, you know, the fact that it is challenging. I mean, even for me as a person doing it in their second language. And I believe that I was the first one in the university to do that, to take a full law degree or in the second language. You have people taking, you know, because you have exchange students and on the master's level, but taking like the undergrad is it's not very common. Or I was the first one to do that.
Yeah, and you're the first person of foreign origin outside of Europe that went through, finished law school and got the bar in Iceland. Is that right?
True. Yeah.
So breaking ceilings all around, not just first woman, but first person of foreign origin outside of Europe, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just a cool thing to know that this is possible, that people are, like you mentioned, that, you know, learning the language was so difficult, but it ended up being so worth it for you to get to your dream, which was to get through law school, get the ability to practice here in Iceland. But of course, you didn't stop there, right? I mean, like, as a pioneer, and I'm sure there's much more to come.
Yeah.
But did you have any idea, though, that you were making history when you graduated and ended up passing the bar?
No, I didn't actually. Because obviously the focus is on doing the thing and not necessarily there are other people, or, you know, just because I'm interested in it. So I didn't know, but the sheriff's office, or the district commissioner, who the one that is issues these kind of your license, or is in charge of issuing the license, he informed me of this. And he also I forgot the name of the town, but it's very far away. I think it's in the East Fjords. But this, forgive me, anybody
like
listening, that
or somewhere else?
Somewhere, I think. But I forgot now.
Yeah.
And he informed me of this, and generally they just send it in the mail, and you get your certificate, and that's it. And he told me that he would like to bring it to the city, to my office, to give it to me in person, because this is a very special moment. And I was like, wow, that's so generous. Thank you.
That's awesome.
And then, it was brought to me. And obviously, the rest, it was in the media and stuff. So
yes, absolutely. And this past summer, you also made partner at your law firm, Reykjavík. Congratulations again, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And it's just, as I'm, thinking about all the different things that you're doing and helping to blaze trails, do you feel like Iceland is doing like more to showcase people who are of foreign origin, or just, different than what people normally think of as Icelandic or living in Iceland, in order to show like, hey, we're really happy, and we have these talented, amazing people that live here. We want you to know and to realize that this is possible as well.
Yeah. So that's a very good question, because in my view, we currently we have a representation problem. Because and this is something I've also spoke about in the media before, that we have to be very careful how we portray immigrants in the media.
Yeah.
Because you can either be a victim or a hero, and which is something that I'm also mindful of. I try to use my position and platform to raise attention to things that we need to work on, and at the same time also point out other people that you should know about.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's something that we have to do, and representation obviously is very important. I've seen real life examples of the positive impact that representation has on people, especially for them to feel empowered here in Iceland, and that includes myself. Women have said as much to me that in deciding to pursue a job or a business opportunity, that they overcame their fears and self-doubt by reminding themselves that, what, if Claudia did it, then so can I.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
And so, and I mean, as I said, with respect to myself, I also saw, in my early days, women of diverse background and those women inspired me.
Right.
And that also helped me to not give up and wanted to pursue my education and then my career.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, whether Iceland is probably realizing that this is a problem, I would say, there are indications of that for certain, because we've done many research on the subject, and my firm did one, which was it was on the basis of a grant that was provided by the Immigrant Fund, Immigrant Development Fund, on job opportunities for educated immigrants within the public sector here. So, I guess with that, what we've done is, we've basically mapped some of the problems that needs to be rectified. And we now understand some of those problems, like which basically shows us what the socioeconomic situations of immigrants are and why that is.
Right.
So we understand that we've mapped the problem. We understand it now, and what is lacking is, I would say, more legal and policy changes to make sure that we address the issues that we've outlined. So for me, maybe what I would say is, I'm now more eager to see some action on the part of the government, since we know, we've both identified the problems and the solutions.
Right, absolutely. Could you just talk a little bit about the type of law you practice? Because I feel like you're already giving insight into it, but why not just dive in there?
Yeah, okay, no problem. But so I have a master's degree from the University of Reykjavík with a focus on international law. And the reason I did that was because, I wanted to have the option, if I decide to move away from Iceland, I could easily jump into something. But I specialize here in human rights law with a focus on anti-discrimination cases, immigration, and refugee law. I also practice criminal law and company and insolvency law. No connection between any of those, but it's just a matter of interest.
Yeah.
And, as you know, human rights law covers just a wide range of protection from all sorts of abuses. So I think that's basically it.
Yeah. And does your human rights, because you talked about refugees, but is it for anybody, meaning Icelanders whose rights might be violated, foreigners? Okay.
Yeah. So, again, that with human rights law, obviously it goes, takes care of anti-discrimination issues and, fair treatment in court, effective remedy, and just any protective grounds that, discrimination covers.
Yeah. Are there any types of cases, meaning types of discrimination that you're seeing the most of overall, or is it so, varied?
Yeah. So it varies for sure. But one of the things that is, that comes up quite often, obviously, is gender-based discrimination and violence. The one that we haven't seen much of, and I suspect with, these legislative changes that have occurred now in 2018, and hopefully with more awareness of these protections, that we'll actually hear more from people about that, is on the basis of nationality and ethnicity. So as I said, this obviously, again, we have to put that in the context of the Icelandic population and the change thereof, and the increase in. I mean, we haven't seen many of those. There are not many court cases about that. The committee that deals with anti-discrimination issues on the basis of race as well, and ethnicity, nationality, and so on, that's newly established, or not newly established, but the mandate of the committee, which was only for gender equality, was expanded with the new legislation on non-discrimination. So now they take on those kind of cases. And so far, there have only been 3 decisions handed down by that committee with respect to race or nationality discrimination on the job market. So hopefully, there is, not that, because it's not that discrimination isn't happening in Icelandic society. We know that, and the researchers here have shown that. But it's a matter of people being aware of the available remedies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people watching this might be surprised to have heard you say that there's a lot of discrimination regarding gender equality and gender-based violence, mainly because Iceland is heralded as this gender equal utopia a lot of the time. And some of this, I mean, it's not like it's not true in terms of how much smaller the gap has gotten in comparison to other countries, but it is still an issue. And I believe that this is something that is important for people to understand. And of course, people like yourself who are doing the work to help combat this and to change this is so important. At the same time, we can't skip over acknowledging it just because marketing has made Iceland seem like it's all fixed, don't worry.
Yeah, that's true. No, I mean, we've seen our fair share of what that entails with the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And, there are different women from different sectors came out to express, or to talk about their experiences with gender-based discrimination and violence.
Right.
And if each sector was more alarming than the next when you heard those stories, and you're aware of the situation of even the more vulnerable group of women, which are women of foreign origin.
Right.
Because in some instances, of course, Icelandic women do have the help of their families and friends. And then when you have women coming from faraway country who really don't have access to the same support system, then obviously the isolation does also do more damage.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, this is something. And even now, I think it was earlier today or yesterday, I saw the Prime Minister was speaking about that at the Gender Equality Forum that's ongoing right now. She was talking about that how surprising it is that it has increased so much, not just here in Iceland, but just globally, during the pandemic, that women are experiencing these especially in close relationships. One of the concerns or the problems that we faced here in Iceland with respect to how these kind of cases are handled in the justice system, a lot of these cases with respect to gender based violence, they've been dismissed, not prosecuted by the prosecutor. And then even if they make it to court, then very few comes with a decision of finding in favor of the victim. And so this organization, Stígamót, has now decided to take those cases to the European Court of Human Rights. To say, just to have the courts say in what is happening in Iceland. And I think, if I can remember some statistics, that over the last 20 years, the organization Stígamót has had over 200 to 250 women who seek their assistance because of rape.
Ooh.
And at least I think just over 6% of those actually end in a conviction at the district court level or the lower court, right? And so, of course, it's another thing that only a fraction of those women actually pursue their cases or press charges with the police. So, when you look at it, it's not so, just so I'm clear about the statistics. So it's 200 to 250 women over the last 20 years that have, sought assistance because of rape from Stígamót, the organization. And most of those women do not press charges. So, and then of the number of women who actually go through and their cases reach the court and a decision is made or a judgment is handed down, only 6.5% who actually end up in conviction. So that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that discourages people from wanting to come forward, right?
Precisely,
if you feel like nothing's going to happen.
Exactly, which is what this case is about. And my firm is heading the litigation in that case before the European Court of Human Rights, just to try to get some resolve as to what is happening and what needs to change in the justice system, so that women can actually feel like they are getting justice, or, as you say, not be discouraged from coming forward.
Absolutely. On another note, in terms of about refugees, because this is a high profile case happening now. And of course, we're not going to try to talk about any particular cases that you're doing, but just in terms of that, I mean, because this has become quite an issue in Iceland, meaning there have been plenty of high profile cases, especially over the last, within the COVID period, even, I think at least 3 that have come up that it's been really high profile. And I'm just wondering, in terms of the law and the different issues that people are coming up against for refugees, I mean, is it really difficult to get the ability to stay in Iceland if you come and seek asylum?
Yeah. So I think it varies. Obviously, when you're dealing with applications for international protection, they are, decided on individual basis.
Okay.
And so there's no 2 cases alike. So the circumstances will sometimes, be better in one case, even though the applicants are from the same country, versus, the other one. But that being said, what I've found throughout the years, and I've been doing this for a couple of years now, is that the processing of these cases seem to be in decline. That, how the cases are processed and just following the law, that is, and for some people listening to this, I might sound very biased saying that, but I can, say that just being able to see the difference between throughout the years, what has happened, that there is a much, I want to say, the policy seemed to be dictating how the decisions are made. And so Iceland is going more to a more conservative stance on this issue. And so you find that cases that would have, been a no-brainer 3 years ago is not the same today. They're not decided in the same way. And so in addition to that, the system somewhat changed with the, I think it was 2015, where a special committee was put in place to handle the appeals of refugee cases or applications for international protection. And the statistics there, I mean, that's just fact, that it's much different than when the committee wasn't. There are many things that is good about having the committee, because, we find that the cases are treated much faster. But the statistic is this, that, the majority of the people don't get the right to stay anymore, or get a positive decision, versus similar cases before the committee was established. Okay. So and then the same committee is also in charge of deciding whether, after a rejection, if you are allowed to stay in Iceland for the court to hear your case. And in the last 4 years, 88% of those applications have been rejected.
Wow.
So again, the stats don't lie.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it might be just, the law itself needs to be revised, because there are certain things there that perhaps it doesn't allow for equal and fair treatment of the similar cases, and so that's something that needs to be looked at. I am currently in the process of submitting a couple test cases, as I call them, because I'm trying to look at how it will benefit applicants for international protection as a whole, based on some of these decisions that are being made. And so I'm looking at that at the moment.
Do you think Iceland kind of follows what some other Nordic countries are doing, or, because there's a lot of fear about allowing refugees in, and this whole idea around, either they'll make trouble or or whatever else. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just wondering, because there are, like,
Mm-hmm.
I was reading an article about Iceland and it being
Mm-hmm.
second when it comes to the amount of, I think, approved applications for asylum seekers behind
Mm-hmm.
Sweden, but it's still like
Mm-hmm.
31% or something really low, right? So if you take
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
whole like
yeah,
Nordic countries,
yeah,
do you
yeah,
feel like there's kind of like this,
yeah.
link in
That's
terms of thinking?
also that's also somewhat misleading, because
Mm-hmm.
I think the stats you're referring to is that Iceland, granting international protection, the numbers went up significantly or drastically
Mm.
because of the fact that Iceland was granting many Venezuelans
Yeah.
international protection.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so it doesn't change the fact that we're not doing exceptionally great. It's just that for that particular period, and for the last couple of years, that
Yeah.
we've the case. So it kind of it kind of inflates the number
Mhm.
quite a bit, and so that's put out there as this, as look how great we're doing. That being said, Iceland, Iceland is definitely doing a lot of good things
Mhm.
when it comes to protection for applicants when it comes to protecting international applicants for international protection. Like, where's my brain going? Because we also have the quota refugee program, and
Right.
every year gradually that number is going up as to how many are received annually. So there are, and I think with respect to treatment of applicants for international protection, obviously there are things that need to be improved,
Mhm.
and by far it's not perfect.
Right.
But in comparison to many other countries, they're doing better. Iceland is doing better. So there are some, positives there. But what we need to do is, I think, with respect to the situation of children who are applicants
Mm.
for international protection, and I find, obviously, I mean, the entire nation is right now very upset because of the
Right.
case that is currently in the media, where you have a child, living here for years, and then was born here and
Yeah.
has no right to stay here
Right.
after so many years. So that's something that we need to address,
Right.
and preferably sooner than later, because this
Right.
is happening again and again and again. You've seen some of the cases that I've had also in the
Right.
media, and it's always something to do with the rights of the child.
Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's
Mhm.
funny. It's good to have you to ask a lawyer to interpret an article, because you're right. Like,
Yes.
I wouldn't have known that this number
Mhm. Mhm.
has a background that if you
Mhm.
understand it, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
putting it into
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
context this way,
Mhm.
now I get a
Mhm.
better idea of what this picture
Mhm.
really looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Mhm.
And regarding discrimination, because you're obviously helping people with this, but have you experienced
Mhm.
any
Yeah.
discrimination, whether it was in your past in Selfos or
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
present?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I've always said that, uh, so the simple answer is yes to both those questions. Yes in the past, and yes in the present.
Yeah.
But the only thing that is perhaps different from many other people is that, being in this position, I am, it doesn't make me immune. While it doesn't make me immune to discrimination, what it does is, it gives me the voice and the tools to do something about it.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I've shared this story before, but I recently tried to get my eyelashes done, and I was informed indirectly that it couldn't be done because there are certain oils in my eyelashes as a black person that would that makes it more difficult to work with me.
Right. Yeah. I don't even
And so,
understand
again, knowing what I know and how to deal with this situation, obviously I will do something about that.
that. Right.
And so it's just like, okay, are we going to do this?
It's like, is this really happening right now?
Is this really happening in 2020?
Yeah.
And you know, in a situation like that, then you start to also think, you know, okay, obviously I don't want to, I'm not doing this for the purpose of revenge, because I'm far removed from that. I want to do it for the, you know, do something about it for the purpose of educating. And also, you know, one, for the person to be aware, like, you know, okay, you might want to reconsider that. Also, to hear what the committee has to say about that, because a committee like that, which I've also criticized, is that you have, I think, about 5 Icelandic people on that committee, none of which have, or not all of them have, you know, the expertise and the speciality in non-discrimination issues or equality issues, and none have it in terms of race or, you know, nationality discrimination. And so so it's going to give me answers for 3 things. Obviously, you know, if it's to educate this individual that, okay, that's not allowed. The position of the committee, are they equipped to deal with cases like this? Because, you know, this is, one would say, maybe more overt racism, you know, sorry, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But yeah, so it's, you know, it's the third thing is, obviously, is the law working like it should? And how do we handle these kind of issues going forward? So it will definitely bring about a much needed discussion.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would hope and wish that I wasn't the subject of the discussion.
Right. Yeah.
That I'm removed from it. But I also think that it's an important discussion to have.
Absolutely. Definitely. And you're a part of a lot of different organizations in Iceland. I don't know how you keep it all going with your law firm, your teaching, you're part of all these organizations, like a chapter of Iceland's chapter of Amnesty International, Women, and so many others. I mean, I'm not even going to ask you how you juggle it all, and because you have children and a husband as well, so I won't even go there. But
don't ask him anything about that.
But in terms of like the importance, because you just mentioned like this committee, for instance, that does not necessarily have all of the necessary skills to be able to judge, you know, these cases in a way that would maybe, you know, help them understand why this specific thing is important to, you know, go further with and have some action. Why do you think it's important, maybe, you know, for you to be on these organizations, and are any other places where you would like to be or be a part of in order to kind of help push more change forward?
Yeah. So what I've found is, you know, my work on certain committees and so on, is that I bring fresh perspective and ideas, and, you know, I am able to, I'm not in the bubble of being Icelandic and this is my reality. I come from different cultural background with experiences and knowledge that I can, you know, even though I came here pretty young, it's still there. It's you know, it's somewhat inherent that you are who you are, you know, based on your surroundings and also just nature nurture, if you will. But so I'm able to, I think, and I've proven that I'm able to do that, because I've had situations where people say, and not these committees that, you know, like Amnesty or just not these ones, but other Icelandic-based committees where they're making decisions, whether it's government mandated decisions or so on. But I've heard people say, wow, I didn't think of it like that. Thank you. So that's also very important, that I find that people are open to what I have to say and the fresh perspective that I might bring to a discussion or a decision to be made. And that's important, because it comes full circle with the representation. If you're not at the table,
right,
you know, you have no say in the matter.
Absolutely.
And it's a phrase or an expression by, I think, the Organization for Disabled Persons here, where they said, nothing about us without us. And so it's the same. You cannot expect to dictate what our rights and obligations should be without inviting us to take part in those kind of discussions.
Yep.
And so that's why it's important to me to be in the room where it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree, 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to wrap this up because we've talked about so many things, and I truly appreciate all of your insight. But I have one last question for you.
Sure.
And that is, what is your favorite Icelandic word or phrase?
Oh, Lord.
Everyone's always like, oh, no.
Yeah. So I think it's a word or phrase I have come to love, but hated it always because I felt like, Jesus Christ. So it's like, it will work out. And I thought that people were overly optimistic about everything, so people are conservative and shy, but nonetheless, they're very open, optimistic about everything. Yeah. Everything will work out. Don't worry too much. And one would think, me coming from Jamaica, that should probably be my thing. Yeah. Like, no worries, man. But no, I'm a worrier.
And a planner. I can tell from this conversation, you're definitely on top of things.
Yeah, that's true. Virgo, I guess.
Yeah. You're a Virgo. Okay, that explains a lot,
girl. So then, I guess that's it. And I've come to realize that, what? It's actually true. In the end, what are you going to do? It will work itself out. Whether you like the outcome or not, it will always work itself out somehow. So I guess that's it for me.
Absolutely. I've had a love-hate relationship with this as well, just because I felt like people were pushing off things and then being like, it'll be fine. And that part I didn't resonate with. And I actually talked about this with like some other people as well, that like, you got to take on your own meaning of it as a foreign person, just to be like, this is how I feel like that dusted.
Yeah. That's actually true too. Yeah. I've seen it many times. That's true. It works out.
Yes. So Claudia, again, so honored to have you. Your experience, sharing your origin story in terms of like where you came from and here, and just again insight too on how things are in the country, just from a standpoint of a person who is working to fight for people's human rights, which I'm so grateful for, and also helping to be one of the representatives of the amazing people that live in Iceland and who are just nothing's stopping you. You're doing what it is that you want and you love and you feel passionate about, and I know that's inspiring so many people, including myself. So I appreciate you so much for coming on.
Oh, you inspire me too. So thank you for that. And keep up the good work, showcasing Iceland in all its glory.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, dear.